Welcome to Success in Motion. Join us as we dive deep with top leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals, uncovering strategies to grow, scale, and succeed.
Welcome back to the Success in Motion podcast. I'm your host, Alex Burho, and today we're going to be joined by Ben Bridwell, and he is the president of Chargebacks 911. So, Ben, thank you so much for jumping on here today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So, can you first just give us a quick snapshot of what is Chargebacks 911? What do you guys do, and kind of how you found yourself in as president?
Yeah, sure. So this is a question we get in general a lot because Chargebacks 911 is something that works with merchants and banks and not as much the general public. So most folks don't really initially understand what we do. But we work with chargebacks, and most people would know a chargeback from, you went to the gas station and your card was scammed and you had to call your bank and they gave you your money back, or, you had some type of fraudulent charge on your account. And that's what 99% of the population understands about chargebacks. What we do is on the other side of that. When those chargebacks come in, they have to be taken from the card brands, passed along to the merchants. The merchants get an opportunity to review that dispute and accept it, that they agree, yeah, the consumer was frauded, or something happened. Or if they disagree with it and they think that there's more information to be provided, they will return that information and it goes back through the banks and to the card brands, and there's a decision made on the winner loss. So what we do is we work with the merchants to provide a conduit for responding to disputes, understanding their disputes, why they're happening, preventing them from happening, things like that. For example, we may tell a merchant, wow, you're getting a lot of disputes for this particular reason. These are steps that most merchants will find will reduce those disputes on the front end. And then in our banking partners, it's just kind of logistical processing and things like that. So software, platform, very kind of niche part of the payments industry that most people don't understand, but it's a big, big industry.
Yeah, again, I didn't know much about chargebacks and all of that. So, how did you find yourself in this niche?
So personally, how I found myself at chargebacks is I spent 17 years, my last job started as a teenager, and I worked in a financial institution for a very long time. They were a card issuer, a consumer lender, and I was there a long time. I was senior vice president at the time I left. I met our founder, Monica, who's actually incredible, like brilliant mind in the payments industry, and she offered me a job and wanted me to come on board, and the company was still young at the time, and she wanted some support in developing infrastructure and departments and operations within the company. And so I joined, and I saw this industry because we're heavily linked to e-commerce, banks, things like that. That's who we serve mostly, and that's obviously a big part of what's growing in the world is all the e-commerce and card not present, things like that. So I saw an opportunity. I took the leap. It was honestly the hardest thing that I've ever had to do because I'd basically grown up in my last company, which was also a founder-led organization, quite large. But yeah, so I joined, and I've been here now for 8 years. During that time, we have seen exponential growth, and we have offices all over the world, employees all over the world, APAC, an office in the UK with 50 folks, and then our headquarters here in Tampa.
Yeah. And I know you had talked a lot about how you guys have grown up and blown up as a company. How have you been working with that growth? What's been kind of your approach to have that growth?
So we're a product-led organization, and so I'll tell you a little because I explained how I joined chargebacks, but I'll tell you a little bit about how chargebacks came to be in it, and it'll maybe help understand a little bit more about it. So Monica, our founder, was an e-commerce merchant herself some years ago, and it was when it was a really new where people were buying online, and there was a lot of kind of fear about you buy stuff online, is it going to arrive. It was kind of, Amazon was not even that big at the time, but she started getting chargebacks, and she was very successful. She did all what she was supposed to do, and she would get disputes. And as her company grew, she got more and more chargebacks. And it started becoming a substantial line item in her financials that these consumers were calling and they were disputing transactions. So she started trying to understand why that could happen and what you can do to prevent from happening. So she called her bank at the time and said, "Hey, I'm getting these disputes. What's going on?" And her bank told her, "Oh yeah, well, if you sell online, that's just kind of part of it. You get consumer fraud, you get all kind of things." And so she took it upon herself to learn all the Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and Discover rules to understand why chargebacks are happening, and most importantly, how to prevent them. And so she started really doing a great job with her payment processing, with her chargebacks, making business changes like shipping faster and things like that to avoid chargebacks from happening. Her bank took notice and came to her and said, "Hey, can you help other merchants who bank with us to do what you're doing?" And she did a little bit of consulting, and that turned into opportunities where uh, merchants were contacting her and asking her to do what she was doing for herself, including, if you remember back in the day, I don't know if this predates you, but Radio Shack, which was a big merchant back in the day, and she got a call and they said, "Hey, can you help us? We have this problem. We're getting a lot of chargebacks. We don't know. We have no clue. We just started selling online." So, long story short, it grew from her taking on merchants, and then eventually she sold off her e-commerce business and started Chargebacks 911, and we grew organically from just a few staff and a few clients to solving the chargeback problem throughout the industry. And I joined about the company's about 5 years in when I joined. And one thing I can tell you about us as a company, and really about Monica and the entire team, we are product led. So when we think about how we've gotten to the size and scale that we've gotten to now, with 350 staff and all of that, is that we have focused heavily on a few things: on our clients and on our product, and building world-class technology that really kind of provides valuable insights to our clients, whether it's banks or merchants, why their chargebacks are happening, and the best tools in the industry. We focused on being a great place to work, and that is like a big focus of mine every single day, is culture and making sure the company is an awesome place to work that provides excellent careers for people, gets them stimulated, excited every day to come to work. And that's how you have, instead of it being a few executives that think about how to grow the business, I have an army of 350 people who think about our clients every day, who think about our product, who think about how to push the ball forward. And then obviously being a good community partner has been part of that as well, and making sure that in the community we're involved, we're being a good corporate citizen. We have several charity programs that I could get into, but anyway, that is part of our growth. Honestly, that foundational, fundamental approach to doing business has been what has got us to this point today. And I wish there was one kind of big pivotal moment, but it isn't. It's an iterative process where we've had to wake up every day thinking about, okay, what is the next step with our product? What's the next step with our business, and how do we get incrementally a little bit better every single day?
And I love how it's been that incremental growth, because I think oftentimes you hear those overnight stories, but more
Yeah.
often than not, it's the day-to-day stuff that gets you there. So you talked a lot about growing your company culture and creating a culture that everyone is working to build the business. What have you found effective as you've been implementing this culture, especially as you've grown to your 350 employees?
So on a culture perspective, I think there's two parts of it. So we have a high performing culture, which means that, if you work hard and you do the right thing, almost no matter what your background is, when you came in the door, you can actually have a great career. And some of our best staff, I mean, we have a gentleman that's been with us over 10 years that started right out of college. He's a senior executive, making big bucks and all of that. He had no experience when he came to us, but he foundationally had the work ethic, had a great attitude, had the will and the desire to do well and succeed. And so we created an atmosphere where people like that get the best opportunities. Likewise, we have high standards, and we don't keep on bottom performers. That's super important to me and to the company. And so our style and how we create a great culture is, if you're in the business, you're working hard, you're doing the right thing, life is good. We have social things, like we have a massage therapist that comes in on Fridays for Stress-Free Friday. You can bring your dog to work for Furry Friday. We have a personal trainer that's free to the staff. We have yoga classes. We have an employee gym. We have company events every quarter. We do a lot. We do a lot to make it where people come to work every day and enjoy being here. But it's not all fun and games. And so the flip side of it is, where we can do that through success, through hard work, through efforts, through taking good care of our clients, that provide the rewards that we're able to provide to the employees. And so that's it. And we focus on extraordinary results out of ordinary people, just like I'm an ordinary person, just like everybody, where I can barely go in the industry and hire someone and say, oh, they're a chargeback expert. That there's very few that exist in the world, and we have most of them. So it's hard to even find any. What we can do is create good training, good systems for our staff, and find good, hardworking, bright people who just need a shot. And that's really something I feel like we've perfected to some degree, is finding great people with a good work ethic and a positive attitude, and then creating an atmosphere that supports them, that teaches them, that develops them, and encourages their professional goals. And they stay around, and they learn more, and they become more valuable the longer they're here. And then they're more fulfilled, because they could have worked at a bank as a teller, or in retail even in some cases, and then they come here and find an atmosphere where they learn a real skill and a real niche, and they have an opportunity to make real money and grow. And I have people, not to be long-winded, but we have people that started in entry-level roles with literally no professional background, that taught themselves through years with us how to be a data analyst, and then eventually how to do, we have a big tech department, 100 plus software developers, and eventually to be software developers. And in fact, some of those are our best software developers, because they understand the business logic that goes along with it. So anyway, to kind of round that off, that is part of the culture, is it's creating an atmosphere where people can move up, they can do well, they're part of something big, treating them well, treating them with dignity, treating them with respect, but also having a high performing culture. Because if you have a high performing culture, the best people stay. The people who aren't willing to do the right things don't stay, and then you end up with great people.
Absolutely. So if there's someone who's listening who's wanting to expand their business, kind of like you have, and obviously niches will play a role in stuff, but what tips or tricks would you have for someone who's wanting to really grow and expand?
I wish there was a big tip or trick that I've learned along the way, but this is my second company that I've been with since a very early stage, and grew with to a very large stage. Is good businesses aren't necessarily revolutionary, they're evolutionary. And so every day we are kind of learning and a feedback loop of those lessons back into the business to iterate and get better and better every single day. And so, make sure whatever you're doing and whatever you're selling is a good product, and that's most important. And make sure you always do it with ethics and integrity, and the highest possible standards for yourself and how you operate. And then iterate. Learn, try things, experiment. If they don't work, try something else, and kind of do that until you get to where you need to be.
I love that. I actually really love that phrase. Good business is evolutionary, not revolutionary. I definitely wrote that one down.
There's a few, there's definitely revolutionary businesses, and I would say we're revolutionary in many ways, but it's been evolutionary because we didn't start out, we didn't start out knowing what we know today. And what we did is we showed up every day, we put in the work. When we failed, we learned, we applied that, and then we got a little bit better each day. And when you look back, you're improving, you're incrementally improving, and you look back over the years and you realize you've come a very long way. And I can't think of one big milestone. I can think of a million little ones that helped us get here.
Mhm. I love it. So, what would you say has been some of the biggest challenges you guys have had since being with the company?
There's been a few. I would say like when you're in an industry or a business that people don't quite understand because it's not at the forefront. Like imagine, I always say if I took a job today at Publix, I would know generally the day on day one how things work. I would generally know that groceries need to be on the shelf, cashiers need to, it's like, and I would just have to figure out how to do it. We've been in an industry that no one really has figured out before us, and we're kind of charting the path in a lot of it. And so, there's been some, there's mistakes over the years that we've been in business. I mean, you make a mistake, you lose a client, you have to learn a hard lesson from it. I would say we've probably made some hires over the years that probably were, we went through this phase where we thought, you had to hire whoever, the biggest name that you could find or whatever. And those have not always been the best successes for us. And so those have been some hard lessons. But you know what, honestly, every single one of them I wouldn't trade because we learned and we applied it and it helped us get better. And so yeah, that's kind of some of our hard lessons we've had to learn. I would say some staff stuff and just some trial and error on the figuring the business out in the early days that have kind of helped us get where we're at today.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Again, you just take them as they come and you overcome them and do better next time. So it sounds like a lot of things are going really well, and I like what I'm hearing with, again, your culture and everything. Now, I know a lot of people are looking towards the future and they're trying to figure out, hey, how can I create either passive income to help enhance what I'm currently doing or even replace active income? What have been your thoughts on this and what have you done personally?
Yeah, so personally, I always look at my life like first of all, you run businesses, but you're also your own business. I'm my first business that I had to run, and I had, have to figure out how to get the most out of myself. And I always look at where my time best spent to get the biggest return, and where my expertise lies and where it doesn't. So I have some investments outside of this. I own a few things, but really the biggest thing that I would say that has been kind of a passive income driver for me is the stock market. And early on I self-managed everything, and I learned the hard way in some cases that unless you wake up every day thinking about the stock market, you better know what you're doing. So I have my self-managed portfolio now, but I also work with some wealth managers and such but I do, in a very disciplined approach, make sure I'm financially contributing to the right buckets, doing the right things, reviewing everything, and then I'm on an actual deliberate plan for my finances. I've also, there's some things that I've invested in that I've realized, because it's time. Like once you get to a certain kind of point in your career, it's time. You have to think like, I only have so many hours in the day, and where am I going to spend my time and for the best return? And so, I look for things that are passive, that truly are passive, A, but B, that I understand enough that I know what's right and wrong, and if it's going to be good or bad or whatever. And C, that I have, whoever I'm doing business with, if I'm, opening or buying something on the side, that I trust the person, that I understand the business well, and that I understand, or I trust them to be a good steward of my financial resources that I'm entrusting them with. And so really that the advice I would give is look for things that you understand, that you trust who you're doing business with, and again, iterate, put some money in, watch it, make sure things are working as expected, and go from there. And then diversify. I don't have one big thing that I do. As a financial investment, I have several small ones that combine that make up my portfolio.
Perfect. I appreciate those thoughts again. Really good thoughts again with the diversification. Make sure you know what's going on. Don't just throw your money at something. Make sure you have a little bit more going on. So, as we're wrapping up our interview, what things do you have coming up in the next 6 to 12 months?
So I will say we are very excited about AI, super excited about AI. So for starters, we were doing AI before it was a buzzword. Before AI was AI, we had AI, and we have some of the most brilliant engineers and technology in the world. I would honestly stack them against anyone. We have some of the most amazing geniuses on our team, honestly. And so we've been doing some really cool things with AI all along. We have now have some things coming out in the future that are going to be really even more, excited. So we're super excited about it. Our clients should be very excited about it. And AI is changing the world, and it's not, it used to be when people talked about AI, it was pretty much buzzwords, and there wasn't a lot to it. But we all use Chat GPT every day. We all see what some capabilities are, and so yeah, I would say that's the big thing. We're expanding to different parts of the world, new markets for us. We're very excited about, and so bringing on staff, which is very cool, kind of even working with folks from different cultures and different backgrounds, and charting out new markets. Those are some of the things that we're working on right now.
That's awesome. Some really good things coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Ben, if there's someone out there today who wants to connect with you more and either ask you a few questions or learn a little more, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. They can reach me on LinkedIn for sure. At Benjamin Bridwell at LinkedIn. They can also, go through our website, Chargebacks 911. I'm happy to, have a call or meet with anybody accordingly. But LinkedIn's probably the best, most direct way.
Perfect. Well, Ben, thanks again so much for your time and your thoughts, and I appreciate having you on here.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, have a good one. Bye.
All right, you too.
Thanks for tuning into Success in Motion. Want to share your story? Visit successinmotionpodcast.com/guest to apply and be featured on the show.